African Americans created dozens of all black towns after the Civil War in communities like Boley, Clearview, and Tallahassee, Oklahoma, and Texas. Conceived as oases of opportunity and lands of liberty for beleaguered black Americans, particularly those from the Deep South, these havens offered a perceived escape from entrenched Southern racism, available land for economic exploitation, and an opportunity to demonstrate black excellence. Today, only a fraction of these historic all-black towns still exist. The surviving communities, many of them in Oklahoma, struggle to remain relevant. Revitalizing America's Historic All-Black Towns is a four-part series produced by the 400 Years of African American History Commission that looks at this rich history and explores ways to protect, preserve, and promote what remains. Welcome to the second in a series of conversations we're calling Revitalizing America's Historic All-Black Towns. We're here to share and synergize, to boost awareness and economic fortunes. I'm Hannibal B. Johnson, a member of the Federal 400 Years of African American History Commission. I chair the Economics and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I'm a lawyer, author, consultant, and college professor. Among my books is one on the all-black towns called Acres of Aspiration, the all-black towns in Oklahoma. Let's begin by reminding our audience about the important historical role played by the all-black towns. America's all-black towns, many of them located in Oklahoma, were once oases of opportunity and lands of liberty for beleaguered black Americans, particularly those from the Deep South. Early on, towns like Mound Bayou, Mississippi, founded in 1887 by liberated African Americans, led the way. Then communities like Nicodemus, Kansas, and Boley, Clearview, and Tallahassee, Oklahoma, offered a perceived escape from the entrenched Southern racism and available land for economic exploitation. These insular black oases afforded African Americans a chance to prove their industriousness and self-governing capacity. At the time, some thought this proving ground rationale for the all-black towns would result in an abatement of racism from white Americans. That is, once white people saw black people as competent, they would abandon openly racist practices, if not wholly put aside racism itself. This would never be. Attractive propaganda from the likes of E.P. McCabe, the founder of Langston, Oklahoma, helped spur the migration westward to these small, rural enclaves. So too did the recruiting agents men like McCabe dispatched to the Deep South. Both lured long-suffering black Americans to what they envisioned as Beulah, or the Promised Land. These towns, formed primarily between 1890 and 1910, declined substantially in the subsequent decades for myriad reasons. The American economy shifted from agrarian to industrial. The 1920s recession and the Great Depression that followed decimated small towns across the nation, irrespective of color. Today, those towns remaining, about a dozen of them in Oklahoma, struggle to remain relevant. Small populations and rural settings create challenges to retaining and attracting young people. The absence of locally based schools means the absence of a community-centered hub that might otherwise inform and engage local citizens. Infrastructure issues present economic obstacles. Given their historic role, the all-black towns are worthy of preserving. How, though, might that be done in ways that are centered on and led by the people who were there, the town's own social infrastructure? Today, we are joined by three experts on the all-black towns who will share their information and insights. Mayor Mildred Burkhalter, Delbert DeWitty, and Henrietta Hicks. Let's meet these amazing Americans. Mildred Burkhalter, a lifelong Oklahoma, was born at Pierce, Oklahoma. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and Management from Northeastern State University. and earned two master's degrees from East Central State University, one in educational technology and another in. Ms. Burkhalter retired from teaching in May 2021 after teaching 26 years at Chakotah Public Schools as a full time at risk academic recovery teacher, director of alternative education, and virtual online class instructor. She presently serves as chairman of the board for Chakotah Creek Indian Community, serves on several boards at the local, state, and national levels, and is an active member of Rentiesville First Baptist Church. She has served as mayor of the historically all black town of Rentiesville since 1991. As Rentiesville mayor, Ms. Burkhalter has secured grants for the town to fund a community center town hall, street work, a senior nutrition program, a park and pavilion, street signs, and the construction of rental cottages. Delbert DeWitty was born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He graduated from Booker T. Washington High School in 1968 and the University of Oklahoma with a BBA in business management in 1972. He began working with Southwestern Bell Telephone Company in Topeka, Kansas, as their first minority initial management development program trainee in June of that year. He spent 40 years in the information technology industry with many awards and recognitions, including Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Ebony Magazine Eligible Bachelor in 1976, National Corporate Eagle Executive Recipient, Leadership Development Fellow for Topeka, Kansas, St. Louis, Missouri, and Colorado Springs, Colorado. After retirement, Mr. DeWitty taught a pre-release class for the Colorado Correctional Program and helped to establish the Descendants of DeWitty nonprofit, on whose board of directors he now serves. Henrietta Olivia Holloway Hicks was born in Childsville, Oklahoma in 1935. She attended the segregated first through eighth grade schools of Clayton Chapel, Rosenwald, Prairie Belle, and Anderson Chapel in Okfuskee County, Oklahoma. Maggie Ashley, the aunt she lived with, served as principal of those feeder schools for Boley High School, from which Miss Hicks graduated in 1953. From 1953 to 1957, she attended Langston University, majoring in English with a double minor in history and French. After graduating from Langston, she resettled in California to further her education in the field of biomedicine. While there, she reconnected with an old friend from Boley, Gene Hicks. They were married in 1965 and 1974. They and their new son moved back to Boley. While living in Boley, Ms. Hicks worked for the Oklahoma City Urban League and the West Watkins Technology Center in Wetumpka. Ms. Hicks is past president of the Boley Chamber of Commerce and now serves dual roles as both municipal judge and assistant director of manpower development for the city of Boley. She attends Antioch Baptist Church, where she serves as treasurer and secretary. The love of her life is serving as Boley historian. She's famous for her telling of the infamous bank robbery in Boley by the Pre-Boy Floyd gang in 1932, and for other tales from Boley's colorful past. Miss Hicks serves as tour guide for thousands from across the country who come to visit the most prosperous and most famous of the 13 original incorporated all black towns in Oklahoma. Welcome, panelists. Let's get right to some questions. So I'm going to direct questions to specific panelists. And if you wish to comment briefly after that initial response has been given, please feel free to do so. That said, let's please keep our answers and comments concise so that we can get to as many questions as possible. So the first question is going to go to all of our panelists, and we'll do it in alphabetical order. And the question is this. We'll begin with Mayor Burkhalter. What's special about the all-black town you represent? What is special about Rentiesville, Mayor Burkhalter, the all-black town you represent?
Well, what's special is that, we're enriched with so much history here. The Dusk Till Dawn Blues Festival was created in the year that I first became mayor of Rennesville. We're home of one of the bloodiest Civil War battles in Oklahoma, the Battle of Honey Springs, that happened in July of 1863. Also, we're home to Dr. John Hope Franklin, who was born here. He lived here until he was about 9 years old, and a whole lot of more special history. We are known for a large amount of individuals that lived here, living in their 90s and 100 years old. So a lot of rich history here in Rennesville.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. DeWitty, what's special about DeWitty, Nebraska?
DeWitty, Nebraska is the first and oldest African American community established in the entire state of Nebraska. It is well indoctrinated into the Nebraska infrastructure. It was created because of the 1904 Kincaid Act, which amended the Homestead Act to provide 640-acre land claims for settlers in Nebraska's sandhills. This lured a number of African American families to move to the area. By 1920, 185 African Americans claimed 40 acres around DeWitty, a small town named after a local African American business owner who just happens to be my great-granduncle. A Nebraska State Historical Society roadside marker commemorating DeWitty was established on April 11th, 2016. The families were traced from origins in Texas, Georgia, Ohio, Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Missouri, New York, and escaped slaves from Canada.
Right. Well, thank you. Ms. Hicks, what's special about Boley?
Boley is so very special because we were kind of founded on the railroad line, Smith and Western. So we think we're as strong as iron, we're strong as steel, and the ground here was fertile. So we think we're as smooth as diamonds because we have existed as an independent, self-contained town. The people here were very smart, energetic, and energized. We brought to the state of Oklahoma in this little small all-black town, which is sometimes known as the jewel of the all-black towns. We brought a change in voting. We brought a change in how you treat Black people. We brought a change in the school system because our school system was number one, we thought, and perhaps others began to think so too, when our children were tested many times with the schools of the larger towns, and we held our own. When I said held our own, that means we were good. We have so many people here that have gone on to be very successful out of the fact that the people that taught them were successful, and they were hard-working educators, farmers, business people. We had people from every sphere of life here in Boley to get Boley going and to keep it going. We were built, as I said, by strong, determined, creative Black men and women. And today we thank them for it.
Thank you. Let's go back to Mayor Burkhalter. Kind of a philosophical question in a way. What does the existence of these all-Black towns say about American history?
Well, the existence, I would say, as a whole, we represent the former slaves, our ancestors, and whatever else that came forth, to this country against their will. But I think that the history has to stay alive in these little Black towns in order to let future generation know the struggle that the African American people had in this country, and how their contribution to this country is what made the state of Oklahoma and the United States what it is today.
Absolutely.
If I might, I'd like to respond to that.
Yes, absolutely.
The byline for DeWitt, Nebraska actually was telling the untold story
Yes.
of Black pioneers.
Mm-hmm.
We started in the state of Nebraska, but obviously it's bigger than that. And I think your question about American history is just that. Too often our story is untold.
Oh, yeah.
And that is exactly what we're trying to do with DeWitt, Nebraska, is make sure people understand that there were also Black pioneers where you never hear that story at all.
Right.
Also, if we don't tell the story, who will be here to tell it? Who's going to know what? If we don't tell the what, who's going to know what?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. A question for Ms. Hicks. If these Black towns were such good things and they were positive developments, particularly for African Americans, obviously, why do so few of them remain today? Why is it that we were unable to sustain them over time?
Well, for many reasons, and specifically for Boley. Boley was kind of a farming community. The greater Boley area was a farming community. And agriculture became limited back in the years, cotton specifically. The farmers were raising enough cotton to take care of families of 10, 12, and 15 children. But when time came along, when the boll weevil, which is a little insect, started killing the cotton, the people had to leave the farms to go and find jobs. And most of those jobs were in the cities. Also, when young people completed high school, many of them went on to college. And after college, there were no jobs around in the small towns. So consequently, they had to move on to larger cities. And that caused a decline in the population. And of course, naturally, many people transitioned. And that was a reason for the decline in the Black towns, and more specifically in Boley.
Thank you. Next question. It's kind of a two-part question. The first part will go to Mayor Burkhalter, the second part to Mr. DeWitt. Now, sometimes when you're taking a snapshot of an organization or an entity, you do what's called a SWOT analysis, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So I want to look at first threats, Mayor Burkhalter. What are some of the threats to the survival of the remaining all Black towns?
Well, one threat right off that I can think of is financial stability. Some of the small Black towns that are still in existence don't have any type of, I would say, strong businesses that would create a tax base in order to bring in revenue to the town. That's a threat. Basically, the leadership in these little small Black towns, I don't see as a threat, because I think it's a leadership that kept most of them alive. But the main threat would be the financial stability, a financial income or financial tax base or whatever else to help them survive, to keep their lights on, their water coming through, their building up to date and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeWitt, what are then the opportunities for the all Black towns? Those still in existence, and even those that no longer exist in any kind of formal way? What sorts of opportunities are there out there to sort of celebrate, elevate the legacy of the Black towns?
Well, for DeWitt in particular, and probably for all Black towns, the opportunity runs in the fact that where we were disincorporated in 1936, And the strengths are our descendants. Again, as I mentioned, there were 185 families spread it all across the United States, and we're still active today. So, because of that, what we've done is kind of focused on a virtual presence. If you kind of look at the business models and corporations today, you have this tension between the brick and mortars, the physical plant of corporations, versus getting involved into technology now, mechanization, or the website, where we have established a very elaborate website for DeWitt in Nebraska. As a matter of fact, I've actually put a link in our chat box if people want to have access to that link. And having that virtual presence has really afforded the opportunity for us to reach out to all of those existing active family members that still want to participate in activities with us now. We're actually, in addition to that, working on establishing a metaverse virtual reality presence in the metaverse for DeWitt in Nebraska. We are really excited about that. Have a very outstanding web developer who is a Harvard grad, young African American individual, and we've just started that first step toward establishing that presence virtually to extend the existence and presence and influence of DeWitt in Nebraska.
Great. Thank you. You know, it's been said that there is strength in numbers. When we look at the all Black towns, what can we do to forge more collaboration between and among the towns to lift them all up? Ms. Hicks?
I do believe that we need to be more in tune to appropriations, grants, hard work, as we all know, and we still do that. And I believe that would help us. We can probably get money from USDA, proposals can be written, grants maybe can be available to the towns, because that's what happens. Most of us lack the funds to really keep the town going. Boley was established in 1903, incorporated in 1905, and we still have a very strong town. It has been built on the backs of the people here, on some funds that we have been granted because of many grants. There is much more needed. And I think that if we are able to tap into the resources in Oklahoma, such as the various departments, the Department of Commerce and et cetera, that have grants that are open for towns. And if we had people with know-how and expertise, and here, Blake, we do have, to prepare these grants and perhaps get more money into the town, that would really put us on a real broad track of survival.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I know that you've been involved in some initiatives that involve collaboration between and among the communities. Is there a need for more of that or stronger collaboration between and among the Black towns?
Yes, and I think that here recently in the last year or two, when the all 13 original all Black towns came back together, and we're meeting regularly on every other month. We're collaborating with each other. We're sharing information with each other. And I think that will be, I guess you could say, the glue between the fact that if we all stick together as a group, we all support each other when I say group, as a town and as leaders, we'll survive.
I might add that we had a forum on the 20th, I believe, of August that brought that many of the offices and the positions in Oklahoma City where the Black towns can receive funds from. We brought them all together in one setting. And I think there were probably about 17 various Oklahoma
Yes.
offices that were there.
Mhm.
And that brought about quite a bit of notoriety with
Yes.
the Black towns.
Mhm.
It gave them a time to collaborate with those people that were over those offices and to let us know where the money is and how to get it. And what is interesting is that in many of those positions, there were Black people, African American people that were over these departments, and that seems to be a pretty good string for us to pull onto if we need money, if we need to know how to get it, if we need to have someone to help us to write those proposals. They seem to have been able to do that.
Yes.
Now, let me also say that Boley had a Smithsonian. The Smithsonian came to Boley, and that was a collaboration of all of the Black towns. We brought all of the Black towns in to maybe tell a little bit about their story and to share their lives, share their goods, and share whatever they wanted to with each other and with the people that were there. It was a very extraordinary, good setting, and we decided that it was all men up and no men down.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Excellent.
Mhm.
So I'm going to give you
let just response to that. For DeWitt, Nebraska, we found it real significant with connections and synergies. I use that word. We actually evolved from a narrow focus of history to expanding our focus to history and ancestry. And right now, we don't have a separation between those two. Now, let me explain what that has done for us. As an example, my name is Delbert Overton DeWitty, and we're talking about DeWitt, Nebraska. So we started focusing on the 185 families, and each one of them are focusing on their ancestry as we participate and do podcasts like this for DeWitt, Nebraska. In my case, my Overton leg, in addition to the DeWitty leg, actually was traced back to a slave plantation in Tennessee that is still standing today. And that plantation was owned by a Judge John Overton, who was the plantation owner. And I had a relative that was a slave there. What that has done is begin to expand the connections between, quote, African American history and traditional American history. And we found more and more ties of that we actually discuss in our podcast now. So those connections and synergies and expanding your scope, I really think allows for more opportunities for synergies and connections across Black towns and gets more individuals involved with a focus on ancestry.
excellent. That's great. That's great. Ms. Hicks, let me go to you and ask you, what do you think? What is the likelihood that the remaining all Black towns will survive?
I believe that they're here to stay with people that are as smart as you and as smart as many of the people that I know and as smart as the ones of us that live in the towns. We're not going anywhere. Our Black towns are our Black towns. Our African American towns are our towns. And we're going to do whatever we can, whenever we can, to make them great, to make them good, to keep them going. We need publicity. We're getting that. We need people talking about the Black towns, talking the Black towns up. And in the meantime, we're improving on our towns. And let me just say for Boley, we have a new gateway into Boley. We have a new park that everybody knows about and they see it when they come down Highway 62. We're the black town that's right on Highway 62. You don't have to go back in the woods to find us. We're right there. We also have a mayoral system. We have trustees that are capable of running the town and keeping the town going. We have our own judicial system, and that is, we need some help with that sometimes, and I will call on you, Lawyer Hannibal, if we need to. We had a school system equal to none. As a matter of fact, let me tell you about one of our graduates. You heard my name, Holloway. Dr. Holloway, the graduate of Boley High School, who became one of the finest presidents of an HBCU in the world, and that was Langston University. He was the longest serving president there. He brought that university back from off of the ground to the top, and hopefully it will stay there. And consequently, he left his footprints here in Boley. So we're building on some of the things that he told us to do. Now, we don't have our school, not because we couldn't handle it, not because we were not smart enough. It was because at that time, we did not have enough youngsters to keep the school open. Mm-hmm. We only had 16 children in our high school. And we were smart enough to know that we couldn't keep a school open with 16 children. So we consolidated, which was good. We own our property. And right now we're working with a company who is supposed to help us restore a bank that tried to be spoiled in 1932, but we still have that building. And we're working on refurbishing a couple of other old buildings that have been here since 1909. Now, if they've been here since 1909, what does that tell you? We're going to be here.
Thank you. So, Mayor, Ms. Hicks raised an interesting point that I think is a real challenge to the all black towns, probably all of them. And that is, how do you keep the young people who grow up in these towns interested in the towns, interested in actually living in the towns and investing in the towns and supporting the towns?
Well, when I first came into office, in order to get the young children involved, I created what was called a little mini council, where each one of them held a position as mayor and as trustee and so forth, and it brought in the majority of the young people in the community. Also, when we were getting grants, I had to focus on what would keep the younger individuals in the community, what would supply need to the older individuals in the community. So this is how I had to, this is how we came up with the community park, the senior nutrition meal, the community center, the park and playground equipment for the children to play on or whatever else. And, we have outsiders that comes in as well and enjoy the park. But this was what I had to focus on. What immediately at the time could I do to keep some of the people in here? And Renniesville population has actually grown. We're steady right now. We're holding on. We have just recently had a young family move in with 3 young children. Another family that moved in with some children. So we're steady growing, but you have to concentrate and look at the interests of all your citizens. What can I do for each one of the categories in order to keep them here? And so far, we haven't had anyone that have left the community. Like I said, we're still growing and people are coming in.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mr. DeWitty, and for that matter, our other 2 panelists as well. Folks listening to this conversation who want to learn more, what should they do to learn about your town?
Again, for us, as I've said earlier, I've got our link for our website in the chat room. It's Descendants of DeWitty, NE standing for Nebraska.org. So you could definitely access that. and you could learn a lot about where we are going now too. I'd like to also respond to the question about the youth, getting them into the town. We've addressed that too and thought about that. You'll see a common thread from us, and we are beginning to focus on technology. And we have found that that does seem to hit the youth where they are. We actually were involved in an excursion to trace our roots, believe it or not. We actually went over to Portugal in our research for the Moors. And what we learned on that trip was there's actually a group called Blacks in Portugal. And there were several African Americans over there in that group of Blacks in Portugal. And what they had done was to get their company to allow them to, quote, work from home, and got approval for them to establish their home in Portugal. I only share that because that started perking our thought process, as hopefully it would for those here. That may be a model we want to use to help get youth into our Black towns. Have them to get their jobs, get the work from home, and then establish an environment within the Black communities, the Black townships, where the youth can actually come there and work from home, even though the industries are not, quote, physically located there. It has been very successful in Portugal, and we're looking at trying to duplicate that model.
Mm-hmm.
We have two young women that are entrepreneurs here in town. But what we're doing for youth, one of the entrepreneurs owns a movie screen, and we have had movies in the park, in our park. We have also 5 cabins that we invite you to come to Boley and stay in one of those cabins. And you can also go to the restaurant and eat your lunch, dinner, and supper. As far as the young people go, we're now trying to prepare for Oktoberfest, moving from November to December. We have a young group that we have trying to get a Christmas caroling group. We have a young group in the church that sing on various occasions. And we're trying to get these young people to we have a drama club. We're trying to get a drama club. We have brought in speakers for the young people because Boley has a historical museum. We have our own historical museum, and it's all about Boley. We bring them in from time to time to teach them about Boley and why Boley is here and why they need to be, why they're here and why success is a must. So we have all kinds of little things that we do to encourage young people from the age of 5 on.
Those are great ideas.
They really are. Mm-hmm. Undoubtedly, there will be people in our listening audience who are wondering, how might I help? So if I'm an individual listening to this conversation, I am compelled by the prominence in history of these towns. I am committed to sustaining these towns over time. What would you have me do?
Well, Boley also has a Boley Tours Incorporated, Boley Tours. We invite you to contact us and invite you to come to Boley. We will take you on a tour of Boley, and it can be by car, it can be by buggy, or it can be by hayride. But we will take you on a tour of Boley. We want you to understand who we are, what we need, and what it takes for us to survive. Now, of course, it takes money. And if you want to make a donation, or if you decide you want to come here to live, let me know. We will find you property, and you can buy that property, build a mansion of your keeping or your size or your like, or build a very regular home that the rest of us have here. Whatever you would like to do to build to come to Boley, we would be glad to have you. We invite you, and you want to know what it takes. It takes money.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a website or a contact phone number that people could reach you or reach the appropriate person to help your Black town?
Yes, sir. If you're speaking, and I'm speaking right up, I'll speak up for Bowley. We have, I told you a while ago, we have a mayoral system, a mayor and our trustees. And I can give you the telephone number to the mayor's office.
Sure.
Is that what you're speaking of, perhaps?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
The mayor's name is Dr. Frances Shelton. Her telephone number in this office, we have a town hall, we have a fire department, and it's all right here together. Her number is 918-667-9790. She will direct you to the people that she needs to direct you to in order to get this thing going. If it's money you want to donate, she knows where to send you. If it's history you want to know, she knows where to send you.
Perfect.
Okay.
What
And
about
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, Rennesville does have a website. I'm not certain if my number is on there, but you can contact me directly. My phone number is 918-913-2491. And most of our information or activities that we're having or will have will be located on that site. And we are welcoming any type of donation that anyone can give to us. We are going to have another, similar to an Oktoberfest, Halloween gathering for our youth here in the community, doing Halloween, which we did last year as well. So we're hoping for success again this year.
Excellent. And Mr. DeWitty, I know you have a website, which is what?
It's Descendants of DeWittyNE.org. All one word, Descendants of DeWittyNE, which stands for Nebraska.org. O-R-G.
Excellent.
And I have posted in the chat for anybody that's live streaming.
Excellent. So I've got one sort of final, Madam Mayor, go to Mr. DeWitty and then Ms. Hicks. And that is this. What gives you hope for the future of the All Black Towns? What gives you hope for the future?
Well, I guess what gives me hope is that old saying is we're still here. What gives me hope is that a lot of recognition are coming to the all Black towns. And, since the conference in Oklahoma City in August, I have received numerous contacts from some of the departments out of Oklahoma City, helping us to grow with infrastructure, with our roads, with so forth. So the recognition and what's available out there now, so far as funds and grants that we can get, long as those are available to us and we're able to get them, that's the hope. That's the hope that we will survive. We're struggling, but as Miss Henrietta Hicks said, we're strong as steel, and we're still here, and we plan to be here.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitty. What gives you hope?
What gives me the hope is timing. It seems like there is a lot of interest in this area now. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not sure what the right term is, if it's history or ancestry or Black towns. Someone mentioned Bill Gates earlier. I'm sorry, not Bill Gates.
Henry Louis Gates.
Henry Louis Gates, and what he has done on that history side. And I mean, he has really transformed Black history. And I think that's going to be a good conduit for what we're trying to do with the Black towns, is connecting into that excitement and enthusiasm. That's what gives me hope.
Great. Ms. Hicks.
The citizens give me hope. The people give me hope. Our intelligence gives me hope. People like you who are interested in the Black towns, that certainly let us have a stage on the world stage. And I'm not trying to recite Shakespeare here, but on the world stage, we have become known as thriving Black towns. That gives me hope. The other part of hope is our young people are more interested in living in these towns rather than in some of the big cities. Another part of hope is that we have so many people that were from these Black towns, and specifically Boley, that are moving back. They want to come back to a little bit of a slower pace. That doesn't mean that we're behind the times now. It just means that we may come back to a little slower pace. You may not have but 1 or 2 street lights rather than 5 or 6 or 20 in Tulsa or whatever. And the people are wanting to come back, and they're proving that by coming back. We have property for sale, and people are buying that property, coming back, building homes, and building businesses. That's what gives me hope.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all for a robust and insightful conversation. Things don't always happen on our timetable. Things don't always move in a straight line. Things don't always go our way. But that said, in the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we must accept finite disappointments, but we must never lose infinite hope. So it is with the Black towns. We've been up and down and all those places in between, but through it all, hope springs eternal. And with that hope, let's make the ancestors proud by resurrecting this history and revitalizing these historic communities. And we can do that with your support. My ask is this: join us, won't you? That's my ask to the audience.
Yes, and I would like to say one more thing after that lovely, lovely oration that you just gave. It was to the point and very good. And I say that because the Black leaders of these Black towns and the people that live in these Black towns, they have gotten there by hard work. Hard work will get you to the top. But character keeps you there. So we have character.
Amen to that.
Thank you.
Thank you all for a great discussion. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.